Welcome to the Amateur's Advantage. I'm Laura Ashley, a Grand Prix dressage trainer and gold medalist rider, here to share the tools and principles that help riders and horses work in harmony no matter your discipline. Each week, I sit down with amateur riders, pro trainers, and equestrian professionals from every corner of the horse world to talk about the real stuff. Training struggles, mindset shifts, breakthroughs in the saddle, and how classical dressage can make us all better horsemen and women. Think of this as your tack room talk, your post-lesson debrief, and your barn family between rides. Let's get into it. Hello again. I'm Laura, and we are back with another episode of the Amateur's Advantage. Today, we are going to be talking about the near and dear core principle to my heart that guides me in all of my teaching. And that is the idea of the thinking rider. My mission has always been that Laura Ashley Dressage creates thinking riders that understand the fundamentals clearly so that they can continue in harmony with their horses up the levels of dressage. So this can be both frustrating and empowering for my students because I'm forcing them to take control of their own journey rather than relying on me for answers, because one day I'm not going to be there and they're going to have to troubleshoot it all by themselves. I want to give my riders the tools so that they can problem solve through whatever comes up. Think through it logically, use the tools that they have, and create a plan to finish their ride in a better spot than they started. Have you ever been at a clinic and it just goes amazing? Your horse is a rock star. You feel like the two of you are ready to go to the Olympics. Everything is just clicking and you are so happy walking out the arena. Then you go home and the next day you go out and try to recreate it. And you aren't even close. You can't get even a fraction as much out of your horse as the day before. And now not only are you frustrated that the ride wasn't all that you had hoped it to be, but also you feel defeated that you know that this holy grail exists and you just can't access it. You don't know how to get back to that feeling in that moment that you had before. That is what I'm trying to avoid with my riders. I remind them that I'm not going to be here tomorrow if you were at a clinic. And I'm not going to be there possibly 20 years from now when you have another horse that's got something similar going on. And it's going to be up to you to take the tools that I give you, not that you borrow from me, but that I literally hand to you and say, these are yours now. I want you to use them forever to make yourself a better rider and horseman and trainer. So the reason that this can be frustrating is because the riders often want me to spoon feed them the answers. And that's not really how learning works. If you've got a math equation and you're like, all right, I've got to figure out, 3 times 7 plus 4 divided by 6. And you're like, okay, so you just do this, that, and the other. Please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. Here's the operation. Bam, there's the answer to your question. Well, that's helpful. Thanks for doing my homework for me. But how did you get there? And what was the process? And where did you struggle? And what were your problems? And how did you get stuck along the way? Those are the places that we actually learn. It doesn't help if you get to the end goal if you don't understand how to show your work and the process in between. So the slow road is often the best one to take because you gain all those lessons along the way. And so what that looks like in a lesson with me is you'll hear a lot of good there like that, which means you got the thing I was looking for. Now memorize that feeling in your body because that's what we hope to recreate. And so that's kind of my rider's trigger of, Oh, that's the thing. Okay. Oh, that's what she was looking for. That's the feeling. I get it now. So I give those riders those moments, and those are normally light bulbs where they go, okay, think I'm catching on. The place where they struggle is when I say better, because better means you're on the right track, keep going, but you're not there yet. You're doing the right things. Maybe you need to intensify, maybe you need to modify, but you're trending in the correct direction. Don't lose hope, keep at it. And better is a tough word because you're like, good, it's better, I get to quit. No, better, keep going, you're so close. And that can be frustrating because they don't know where they're trying to wind up. They feel that it got better, but they don't know where that holy grail is, that ultimate feeling, because they haven't been there yet. It's new to them. Maybe they've never felt collection before that is of the quality for a second level. So they don't know what it feels like to be in collection because they've only been in working gait. So how the heck are they supposed to do it if they've never felt it? And that is tricky to teach people feel. But I stick with them and let them keep, this is key here, experimenting, trial and error and failure until they deduce on their own that sensation. I'm going to guide them through the process and make sure they don't go too far off the path in the wrong direction. But I want my riders to screw up when I'm there watching and they're in a lesson setting, that I can help redirect them and let them know when they've gone too far in the wrong direction. But if I keep everything fluffy and wonderful and never let them struggle or fail, they're going to miss so many lessons that come along the way. They'll get frustrated with me and they'll want me to spoon feed them the answer because it's hard and it feels icky and they know it's wrong, but they don't know how to get it better. And part of it is being willing to experiment. So what does that look like? Think of it as a science project. When you do your 6th grade science fair, you start with a hypothesis. My experiment that I did in 6th grade was drying fruit, and I made some sort of box that was supposed to take the water out. My hypothesis was that after 3 days, the fruit would be dried out. And so I made this box for this experiment, and turned out it rained that week. And so my fruit did not get dry. My fruit got wetter because I left it outside. And so I didn't then throw away the whole experiment and get an F on the project. I gained data. And I learned that when it rains and there's not sun outside, the fruit will not dry in my device. And my device, made out of cardboard, will crumble. So sometimes you don't learn what you wanted to learn, but you gathered some more data points. And then you don't just quit there. You run this experiment again and again and again and again until you find something that works. And guess what happens after that? You run the experiment again because it needs to be repeatable until it can be proven as true. And so that's what happens with our training is we go, all right, well, when I squeeze my horse, it goes forward. Okay, that worked. Well, this time when I squeezed my horse, it didn't go forward. Well, does that mean that squeezing my horse isn't the right thing to make it go forward? I feel like it should be the right thing that makes my horse go forward, but it didn't work this time. So maybe I screwed up. Maybe I'm all wrong and my aids were all messed up and I have no idea what I'm doing and I'm a complete failure and I don't deserve to ride my horse because if I squeezed it right, it would have gone. And so a lot of times the riders will get stuck there in, it must be my fault. I must be the worst rider ever. And if I just wasn't so bad at this sport, then my amazing horse would do it right. And accountability as rider is important. And yes, the better we ride, the better the horse understands our aids. But sometimes your horse doesn't listen to your aids. And that doesn't mean your aids were wrong. but now we have to learn how to modify or intensify the aids or improve our timing of the aids until we do get the right response. And so I've had some wonderful patient horses and some not so patient horses over my career that have been my guinea pigs for my training. And I haven't always been the best. I was a kid and I didn't know what I was doing. And some days I still don't know what I'm doing. And I still feel like I am just lost out there. I've got imposter syndrome and I'm trying to fake it till I make it. I'm supposed to be in charge of this whole show and know what I'm doing, and I don't have all the answers. That's okay. It's okay to not have all the answers. It's okay to try and fail. It's okay to go, well, that wasn't the right exercise for that horse, or guess I won't be doing that twice because that was way too much aid and the horse let me know real quick. That's part of learning. And as long as you take those pieces and then you put those little nuggets in your head and you store them for later and go, maybe next time I'll do it a little different. That's all we can do. That's all we can do. It's just continue to fact find and gather information to become a slightly better version of the rider that we were before and continue to want to learn and grow. It is okay to ask for help. It is great to ask for help and to keep learning and stretching yourself and doing things that are difficult in hopes of getting a little bit better. And that's what this whole journey is. It's a never-ending learning process. They say it takes 2 lifetimes to learn how to ride a horse well. So I'm still working on my first one and have a long ways yet to go. But there's always more to learn is the purpose. And so my riders will get frustrated with that period where you feel like you're trying to find your way out of a room in the dark and you don't know which way to start walking or where the door is or how the key works or to get out that exit. And it's just frustrating and it's scary and you don't know which way to move and you don't want to move the wrong way and you kind of like freeze in fear, and it's tough. It really is. So my job isn't to give them the answers. My job is to support them when things are hard. I'm going to be there to say, the door is somewhere to the left. Okay, now take 10 more steps. My job is to not go in there and grab them by the hand with a flashlight, yank them to the door and open it up for them. I am trying to give them enough tidbits to help them discover on their own which way they need to move to accomplish their intended goal. And so I do a lot of conversation with my riders, and I make them work through the ugly, and sometimes I won't let them ask me questions in that moment. I want them to struggle and work through it on their own. And then when we get to a point that they're either tapped out, it's clear they're just not getting it, and I explain it more clearly and give them more information to work off of. Maybe I stand up and show them with my body on the ground. Maybe I go put my hands on their legs and show them how much pressure I really meant. I let them continue to work through it. And maybe they have success. Maybe they got to that better point. I'm like, okay, we're trending in the right direction. Now let me give you a little bit more. But when we pause after one of these struggling points, I ask them, okay, so what did you get out of that? Tell me what you learned. Tell me what you felt. Sometimes what they got out of the experience is not what I thought they would have got. So I've got one rider and she's like, I thought about my right butt cheek the entire time and you said, good, it was better. I didn't realize that her right hip was lightly lifted. And as soon as she dropped it down, everything got straighter. And I was looking at other symptoms. And she said, as soon as I started thinking right butt cheek, right butt cheek, right butt cheek, right butt cheek, it all improved. So we had a good chuckle over that because her takeaway, I never said, hey, fix your right butt cheek. She found that on her own through the process. And that was her little mental check-in the rest of the ride to keep her more straight and centered. So that's one of the other benefits of me not giving the clients the answer is sometimes they come up with something that's more critical than the piece that I gave them. Or maybe they connect what I said to a life experience that makes more sense to them and they come up with their own analogy. I was talking to one of my students, this was years ago, about leg yields. And he's like, oh, it's just like sailboats. I'm like, well, I've never sailed a boat before, but I am so glad that worked for you because that was a great leg yield. I don't even have to understand where they're coming from, but if they can link what they felt to something else they're familiar with in their personal life, then it can sometimes deepen that level of understanding. So when we take these walk breaks and check in to see what the rider got out of it, I make them repeat it back to me as if their friend from the barn was about to get on the horse and have to do it. So now they're teaching in their head this adult amateur friend of theirs who's about to get on their personal horse and recreate the lesson. I'm forcing them to speak it into existence as if they are now their own teacher, because they say teaching is the deepest level of understanding. If you can break something down to explain it to a child, that means you really get it at a core level. I actually do this with my riding as well. I will chat through my rides because it does a few things for me. One, it works on my teaching vocabulary and language, because as I speak about what I'm feeling and what's happening in the ride, I'm practicing that dialogue that I'll then share later with my students. It helps my clients to see the nuances of what I'm doing, because if I do my job right, most of my aids should be nearly invisible. And so for a lower level rider who's new to the sport, they might not see those subtle changes in my body, but if I announce them during the ride, odds go up that they can kind of visually see the small difference and will get it sooner. The other thing it does is it keeps me fair, because if I say left leg, will you move over? I know that I started soft, I escalated the aids, and then I got to the point, and then I say, thank you. Now, how hard was that? Just, I wanted you to move off my leg. There, see, isn't this nicer? Now left leg. Ah, good boy, thank you. So I kind of go through that to watch my own emotions and see myself intentionally ramping up to get a result, coming back to my calm, asking again nicely, and then staying in the calm. When I talk to my riders, I'm getting feedback on their emotional state and their depth of understanding. We also get to check in on vocabulary. I'm a stickler for that. I went through the riding instructor training certification with USDF as well as the USDF L judging program. And so vocabulary is near and dear to my heart. And I'm very careful that we're all speaking the same language with the terminology we use so that we have the ability to communicate clearly with each other in our lessons. So if somebody says, my horse really needs more impulsion in the walk, I'm like, all right, I'm going to stop you here. This might seem a little bit rude to correct you on it, but I want you to understand it. Walk doesn't have impulsion because impulsion requires a moment of suspension. And there's never a time when the horse is in the air in the walk, but there is in the trot and the canter. So trot and canter have impulsion, but when we're talking about walk, we talk about things like march and energy and activity. So I understand what you're trying to say, but let's make sure that we learn the vocabulary that goes with it so that you can communicate with other riders clearly and you and I are talking about the same thing when we have problems. So that's just one example of how making people tell me what's happening in their head really helps for them to be a more conscious student. Then the other thing that happens is sometimes we're riding around and I'm saying, go more forward, send the horse in front of the leg, kick the horse, use your lower leg, come on, I need like a medium trot, give me more. And I was like, we take a pause. And then I was like, all right, so what were you thinking? They're like, oh, my balance in the posting was just terrible. I kept looking for my stirrups and like I couldn't keep my foot still. Like, okay, but how many times in that last set did I mention your foot? Well, none. Okay, so do you think that me, knowing me as well as you know me, would let it slide if I saw your foot doing crazy things and that was the most important thing to me and I thought that would make the biggest impact on your riding? Well, no, you see everything. Even when you're not looking and you're like at the other side of the property with your back turned and just listening to footfalls. I'm like, yeah, right. So do you think that if your foot had that big of an impact in this moment, that I wouldn't have mentioned it at least a few times to you? I don't let you get away with anything. I am tough on you guys. So if that was really the catalyst of your issue, promise I would have talked to you about it. Well, yeah, I guess you're right. Okay, so what did I say? Well, I don't really know. That's right. You don't know because you were in your own head that whole last set and you were fixated on something that was a symptom instead of getting to the root of the problem. And I was trying to catch your attention, and I tried soft tones and I tried loud tones and I tried clapping and I tried jumping and I tried standing up and coming out in the arena behind you. And we never got there because your brain was so loud that you missed the message that I was trying to share with you to get you back on track. So sometimes the negative voices in our head are so loud that we actually miss the pieces of instruction that we need to get from our trainer. It's important for me to know that when my rider is distracted. Sometimes the distraction is, on Saturday while you weren't here, my horse spooked at that corner. And so I skipped that corner the past 3 laps around the arena because, 3 days ago there was a scary thing there and I don't want to have to experience that twice. It's important for me to know those things and for my clients to be comfortable sharing that with me when they are starting their lesson, because part of me is going to say, well, get over yourself and go in that corner anyways. But the other part is going to mentally support them, and I'm going to cheerlead them through the corner and going, all right, you've got this now. No monsters today. Inside leg on. Come on, we're going to leg yield out into it. And if you need to make a little bit of flexion to keep yourself safe, that's all right. We're going to get through it. There, that was so much better. So when I know what's over facing a rider, I can help support them as a good coach through those moments. A lot of times personal life gets in the way, whether it be a medical issue or a life problem going on. It's hard to leave it at the mounting block. We're supposed to, but if somebody comes in and says, oh my gosh, I've had a fever all week, well, I'm not going to push them as hard today. Or if they come in and they're nearly in tears because of, a problem with their child, I'm not going to push them as hard that day. I'm going to nurture and love and support them because I care about them. They're my people. I love my barn family. And so having that depth of trust with each other, that they feel comfortable to be vulnerable with me and share what's happening in their life, lets me be a better teacher for them in that moment. And so on those days, I am going to cuddle and I am going to hold their hands and I am going to walk them through all of their difficulties because their bandwidth for stress is already tapped out. And so I'm there as a coach to push the rider to where their personal threshold can handle and to read the room to know when I need to back off. Because there are times where I push a little hard and, today's not the day for that. Just let me enjoy my horse being my therapist. And that's okay too. So my job is to give the rider the tools they need to be successful. And that'll happen a little bit at a time. We build in layers. And then guide them through the process of how to train their horse so that I keep them on track for where we're trying to go. I know that the end goal is here, the holy grail of collection and Grand Prix and all that stuff. And maybe they don't aspire towards being at the top of the sport, and that's okay. I've got no problems with Their goal being, I want to be able to trail ride without falling off my horse. Help me get better balance. That's an excellent goal, and I'm fully supportive of that. But I can use my knowledge of what the top of the sport looks like to let them know why something might work short term but not long term. And so I can help them understand that works for now, but what happens when you need to do, I don't know, tempi changes or a half pass? You're going to need that aid for something else, so we need to make it better. And so I can help them see further into their future of where the journey could go and help them with that mapping, since I've been to the end goal and they haven't yet. And then I let them kind of struggle and weave around on the path on their way to where we're trying to go. We do a lot of check-ins. We talk about what they feel, what they gained, what helped them the most. And then we talk about their plan for the next ride. And I go, all right, so, if you were to come back tomorrow, what would you keep from this ride? What would you change? What else would you work on? What would your next steps be? And we kind of brainstorm about this together and collaborate on a training plan for their horse. And if anything goes too far out in left field, I reel them back in and go, okay, well, that was an interesting idea, but why did you think that would be a good idea? And I often get, I don't know, because I don't know what I'm doing, and I'm not good at this. I'm like, hold on. I wasn't saying that. No. Literally, just explain it to me. Where was your brain going so that I can understand, so I can help bring you back to where I'm going with this and help you through the rest of the way. That frustration kicks in often of, I don't know what to do next. I'm like, but yes, you do. No, I don't. I'm lost. I'm stuck. I don't have any more information. And I'm like, okay, but let's dumb it down. Let's make this real simple. Let's break down the problem to the most basic of basic level. And let's start there together. Start with what you do know. And let's use what you already do know as facts to then build a plan that makes sense together. So the other thing that I use is I love the training pyramid. I'll work them through it, and it'll be something like, all right, so how was your rhythm in the walk, trotting, canter? And they'll be like, well, it was a little slow. Was your rhythm correct? Yes or no? And they're like, yes, my horse had a pure walk, trotting, canter. I'm like, okay, good. So how was your tempo? They're like, that's the question I wanted to answer. Well, it was a little behind my leg. It was a little slow. I was like, okay, got it. So you need a better reaction to your aid, but overall you're saying that you could use a little bit more quickness. Yes. Okay. So we're going to increase the tempo. Got it. Put a note in that. All right. So now how was your suppleness? Laterally, left and right, and longitudinally over the back. And they go, well, he was a little bit stiff bending up. I go, okay, great. We're going to put a note in that. And he's like, but he's pretty good to the right. Excellent. And did he kind of like use his back and core a little bit? He's like, yeah. Okay, cool. And I'm like, so what about contact and impulsion? Because I kind of flip-flop those two from time to time and mush them together. Because if the horse isn't going from behind, then they can't really connect out front. So those two are often linked in my head. And I go, well, they kind of were pushing from behind, but I don't know if they were really tracking up in the trot, and I think it could be better. Okay, got it. And how about the contact? Well, I think if I fixed the impulsion, they'd be better in the hand, because they weren't really like against the hand. It was just not there. Like, okay, great. So how about the straightness? Well, they were straight, but they were straight because they weren't supple. I'm like, all right, heard. So we'll keep that in mind. Or, they were pretty straight, but they also felt like a 2x4. And then I was like, and what about collection? Well, I'm only in training level. Okay, well, how about balance? Can we talk about balance instead of collection? Yeah. Okay, were they in a level balance? Were they using themselves in a way relative to the level that they're training? Yeah, they weren't too heavy on the forehand. So then we go through it together and we go, so you were telling me that they were kind of a little behind your leg, and so that meant that they weren't going to the bit as well, and that they were so straight in their body, but only because they were stiff, especially on the left side. Does that sound correct to you? They go, yeah, that's kind of what I'm up against. It's like, okay, great. So we've identified the problem. That's step one. First, figure out awareness of what is the issue. Because if you don't know what the issue is, it makes it really hard to fix it. And then we go, okay, so now you're telling me you have trouble with left side suppleness and you're having trouble with thrust from behind. Yeah, that sounds like it. It's like, okay, so what are you going to do about it? They go, well, I don't know. Yes, you do. Oh, well, I guess I could do some circles. Great. Let's go give it a try. What else could you do? Well, I could spiral. Yeah, that would work. Okay, what else? I don't know. Well, there was another thing you mentioned. You said that you were struggling with push from behind. Yeah, I did say that. So what are you going to do about that? Well, I guess I could try transitions. I was like, great. So they go out and they try it and they find out that they're not very good at spiraling. So we maybe scrap that one and save it for another day. We start with just transitions and circles. And then we'll work on the spiraling out in our next lesson together. So we build it like that, where I'm making the rider think through the training pyramid, identify what they're feeling, and then tell me what they felt, and then identify the patterns in behavior in the horse, and then talk to me about how that shows up in the ride consistently in different movements and gaits and directions. And then pick 2 to 3 exercises that might maybe possibly help. And then after trying the exercises, report back which ones were really great and which ones were so-so. And then we talk about if the horse made improvements, where we would like them to still be a little bit better. And then we talk about our takeaways and what really helped us most. And then we come up with a plan for our next ride. So I am providing this structure, this roadmap for how to think through your rides as an intellectual and problem solve through, because riding horses for me is like a puzzle. I'm just trying to move around the pieces and figure out how it all works and blends together, which is why I get so excited about biomechanics, because if I understand how my body in the right timing can influence the horse's way of moving or direction of travel or the use of the limbs or the core, it is just fascinating to me. We can break it down even further to how is the rider's body affecting the horse. And the more understanding you have of that, the easier things get. You might have never done a half pass in your whole life, but after you hang out with me for a little while, you could explain where your aids might possibly need to go based off of what you learned in first and second level. A half pass is a movement where you go sideways and it has bend. And they say, well, I've never done that before. It's like, okay, fine. I get it. But I'm not going to tell you how to do a half pass. But I'm going to ask you, how do you make your horse bend? Well, I put my inside leg at the girth and my outside leg back. Okay, so if it worked in training level to make bend, do you think it still might work the same in third level to make bend for a half pass? Yeah, I mean, the odds are probably pretty high. Okay, all right, so we'll keep that in mind. And then it's like a sidewaysy thing, you said? Yep, yeah, it is. So how did you make your horse go sideways when you had to do leg yields? Well, there was like some seat shifting and some weight balance stuff, and like I used my outside leg. And then they kind of went over. It's like, okay, so do you think some of that might help you to move sideways in your half pass too? And they go, I mean, probably. If it made sense to the horse to do a leg yield and move over, it'd probably work kind of the same to do a half pass and move over. And you go, great. Let's put it together and see what happens. And that'll be our jumping off point. That'll be our rough foundation. Then we finesse it from there and add the little details, which are endless, to improve the quality and the sophistication of the aids. But there's enough of a strong, concrete built foundation for their riding that they have a place to start from. And then they can build from there and get more and more layers to their understanding. So I love empowering my riders by sharing as many tools as I can and giving it to them. I try to be a bit more careful now with not giving them everything at once because it can be overwhelming with how much information there is to learn. But as they learn something new, I'm not holding them back. I want them to learn more so that I can give them more stuff. I want to share everything that I have inside of me with them and all of you so that you all can have a better relationship with your horse. I'm so passionate about that so you guys can communicate more clearly together, because then there's less frustration and there's better partnership and happier riding, and that just, it makes me smiley and makes my heart warm inside. I never worry about my riders outgrowing me because I keep learning. I keep growing and doing what I can to become a better coach and trainer and teacher for everyone that I get to influence. If there's something I don't know, it's an opportunity for me to learn more. Sometimes my students make me stretch and grow because they'll ask me a hard question. I take it as my personal responsibility to seek out that knowledge and help them continue on their journey so that they can be better for their horse. I hope all of that has inspired you to continue to learn with us here and become a thinking rider that understands those fundamentals so you can have a more harmonious ride with your horse. That's it for today on the Amateur's Advantage. I can't wait to have you guys back next week and enjoy the rest of the ride with us as we continue our dressage journey together. Thanks so much for joining us today. That's it for this episode of the Amateur's Advantage. If you found something helpful, share it with a barn friend, subscribe wherever you listen, and leave a review. It helps more riders to discover the show and join our equestrian community. Don't forget to follow Laura Ashley Dressage on Instagram and other social media channels for more tips, behind-the-scene content, and updates on future episodes. Join us next week as we continue to unpack real-life training challenges, mindset shifts, and how classical dressage principles can help solve problems for riders and horses of all disciplines.